Good afternoon, everyone. I know you'll be wondering, who is this lady calling my name like this to greet me? I am Abiola Oluide. Thank you all for joining and welcome to the Super Moms Knowledge Series. Today's Super Moms Knowledge Series is the rise of atheism. Very, very interesting topic. Thank you, moms, dads, and everyone joining this webinar from all over the world. We have with us participants from Nigeria, the United States, South Africa, Canada, United Kingdom, and other parts of the world. Thank you, and we're so glad to have you join us. So let me just take you through a few housekeeping rules before I continue. This webinar is live and interactive, so we'll be interacting with you through the polls, and we also have fun activities as well. The webinar is also being recorded, so it can be made available to other parents who are not able to make this live session. You can make use of the chat box at the bottom part of your screen for your questions, comments, and reactions. We will try to take all your questions during the Q&A session. That's at the end when the guest speaker is through with his presentation. If you'd like to speak at any time, please raise your hand using the raise hand tab or click on the green tick at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and we'll unmute your microphone. Also, you can send non-verbal feedback to us, your host or your speaker. For example, if we're speaking too fast or too slow, you can just go to the bottom of your screen, click on the more button, and then the reactions, you can see the arrow to the left or to the right to let us know we're too fast or we're too slow. If you're having any technical challenges, such as poor audio or video during the presentation, kindly send a message to the host for assistance. Great. So we're now having our games now, just to lighten the mood a bit. We have some very easy questions, and you're not supposed to Google it. You're not supposed to check your dictionary, but you can ask your smart kids at home. So in a few seconds, we'll have the questions up. I'm sure we can see it. So just click on the answer. Very simple. Whoa, we're pretty fast. I like this, people. Great, 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 great. Let me just give a few more seconds. Okay, we're getting some other answers up here. Wait. Ask your children, don't be shy, you. Please. All right. Okay. So the first question, the tallest freestanding mountain. I see most people picked Mount Everest, but the answer is actually Mount Kilimanjaro, because it's the freestanding mountain, not just the mountain. Okay, we've closed the poll. All right. Well done. How many legs does a spider have? I'm surprised. Some people picked 6. Wow. It's 8. Those people should have asked their children. Okay, and then which Disney movie did Elsa feature in? Frozen. And then what the female deer? That's Doe, correct. You know how I got that? I remember The Sound of Music, where we sang that song, Doe, a deer, a female deer. That's how I got that answer. Well done, everyone. Great. You can stop sharing now. Well done, everyone. I'm sure you guys had some fun, right? Now let's talk about the Super Moms Foundation. The group Supermoms started in 2019 as a community where mothers across different ages share their parenting experiences, also their challenges, and they learn from each other on motherhood and different techniques on how to raise children. We also have a Mom's Day Out, where mothers across various professions and businesses take a day off twice a year. On this day, we have kids, and then at the home front, we leave the kids to the dad to handle all that, and then we go out and have fun. It can be at the beach or a day at the spa. However, last year we decided to take the Super Moms a notch higher by reaching out to more moms and also including the dads in activities. So we started a monthly series called the Super Moms Knowledge Series, which is a monthly webinar which holds on Zoom. Through this, we have reached more than 500 parents across different countries. At our webinars, we also invite experts to speak on various parenting topics and issues. In today's session, we'll be discussing the rise of atheism. And now I'll be handing you over to today's host, Ediri Sobande. Ediri Sobande is a seasoned data and analytics expert with over 8 years work experience in the telecoms, banking, and consulting industries. In addition to her professional career, Ediri, fondly called Awelewa, is passionate about building wholesome and integrated family life with a focus on raising godly, socially responsible, and intellectually sound children who will become healthy, stable, and successful adults in the society. This passion inspired the idea of founding the Super Moms Foundation. She has transformed families and reached out to indigent women and children through the foundation's several expressions. Please welcome with me, Mom and Dad, everyone. Welcome, Ediri Sobande.
Thank you so much, Abiola, for that very warm welcome. Thank you, moms, dads, guardians, caregivers, everyone joining us today. We are so glad to have you in this session. Today, we're looking at another critical topic, the rise of atheism. You know, for most of us parents, we didn't choose our religion. Our parents did. They labeled us and we followed accordingly, even into adulthood for most of us. But for our children, things have and are changing really fast. They think differently, they think independently, and they ask questions that we did not dare ask when we were children. I'm sure parents can relate with that. You know, when you are a child, there are some questions you will not ask your parents, because if you ask such questions, you know what will follow after that question. So we have our children now. They ask all sorts of questions regarding any and everything. And that includes religious belief. And so we are aware that the non-religious label is on the rise amongst them. And as parents, how ready are we for this? To take us further into this very important discussion, we have a special guest speaker, Mr. Darwish Foudeh. Mr. Darwish Foudeh, together with his wife, founded Avicenna International School here in Lagos, Nigeria, in the year 1989 at the age of 23. Having worked closely with children for 32 years, he developed a vast experience in child-related issues, and he shares his experience with parents of Avicenna School on a regular basis through a platform called In Focus. His presentations tend towards topics the children need most, but are considered hot or sensitive subjects by the parents, such as sex and religion. He also talks about topics that the children suffer from, but the parents are not equipped enough to handle, such as self-esteem, peer pressure, substance abuse, and expectations from life and parents. Moms, dads, everyone joining us this afternoon or morning, wherever you're joining from, please join me as we welcome our special guest, Mr. Darwish Foudeh. Mr. Foudeh, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're
Thank you,
really glad
Sobande.
to have you here.
Thank you for this introduction. Let me start sharing my screen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us from different time zones. Good afternoon for others who are within my time zone. I'm glad to welcome all of you, most especially my friends and my family who are seeing me for the first time doing my lectures. I've been doing this for quite some time, but I must admit this is my first ever webinar. And I was a bit reluctant to go on a webinar because I always believed of looking at people's faces when I speak. But supermoms were being super, bullied me to be able to do this, and I'm glad I'm here today. Before we start the topic proper, I'd like to mention that Sobande called me, Mrs. Sobande, and we had a chat, and they said, what do you want me to speak about? And she said, we leave it to the speaker to come up with their own topic. So in about 2 days, I sent her my own topic, which is today's topic about the rise of atheism. She called me and she was very nice and polite. She said, well, we like the topic, it's very nice, but we would wish you to change it because at Supermoms, we don't want to discuss religion. So I was like, okay, I could change the topic, but I said, these are the topics that are highly needed. Most of us need these topics. And if we continue to run away from it, we don't benefit. So in about 2 days after she met with her team, she called me back, and this is how we found ourselves here. And they said they have changed their mind, and they accepted that I should do this topic, and they think it's going to be beneficial and useful. And I thank them for this courage, and I hope I will deliver a very good presentation. Let me just get rid of this. So I'm sorry, as I said, this is my first webinar. I'm just trying to remove the screen from here. That's fine now. Okay, I'm good to go. For most of us are having trouble actually believing what we profess to believe. And that leaves us unarmed in the battle that rages against our children and influences the hearts and souls of our babies. Let me start by this quote. My task, which I'm trying to achieve, is by the power of the written word, to make you hear, to make you feel. It is before all to make you see, by Joseph Conrad. This presentation is of 2 parts. The first part is explaining why I believe we have a problem. The second part is exploring steps to deal with the problem. To be only fair to start by defining religion. Religion is the belief in and worship of a super being controlling power, especially a personal God or gods. The closest estimate as at today for the followers of various religions in the world places Christianity as the highest, with about 33% of the population, and Islam for about 21%, followed by Hinduism about 14%, then other religions follow. On the other hand, atheism is derived from the ancient Greek atheos, meaning without gods, godless, secular, refuting or repudiating the existence of gods. In a nutshell, atheists believe there is no God. In underdeveloped countries with uncertainty about the future, with no social safety nets and lack of healthcare, there are virtually no atheists. By contrast, atheism blossoms in places where most people feel economically secure, particularly in the social democracies of Europe, as there is less uncertainty about the future with extensive social nets and better healthcare. Atheism is not a modern invention due to the Western Enlightenment and advancement in science and technology. Rather, there have been many throughout history and across all cultures who have resisted belief in the divine. Although humanity is naturally predisposed to believe in gods, the choice of believing or not believing is purely the person's decision. I will use a quote from the Quran, chapter 10, verses 99. Had you Lord so willed, all those who are on the earth would have believed. Will you then force people into believing? The question, why bring out this topic now, since it has always been there and people are free to make their choice? Why the worry? Time magazine, Is God Dead? Is God Dead was an April 8, 1966 cover story for the Time magazine. The article looked in great depth at the problem facing modern theologians in making God relevant to an increasingly secular society, where God took up less and less space in people's daily life. Today, 55 years later, asking the same question, the response isn't likely to be limited to yes or no. A chunk of the population born after the article was printed may respond to the provocative question with, God who? There is a deliberate, predetermined, and consistent effort to impose atheism on our children nicely. I say nicely because the techniques used to achieve a non-believing humanity make it seem like a conscious, wise, and free choice. There's a lack of fair play as the winning choice is having a great advantage in terms of exposure and tools over the other choices. Let me start by asking a question. If I was with you as an audience, I will ask you the question, but now I'll ask myself, do I like this picture? If somebody asked me if I like these paintings, my question would be definitely no. It's an ugly picture. It has deformed the face. I don't think anything is nice about this painting. If you tell me it's a famous painting called Dora Maar, well, I still don't like it. It was painted by a famous painter. I still don't like it. It was sold in an auction. Sold in an auction means it's a very important painting. Probably I'm going to still say no, because what I would like would look something maybe like this. Normal people who have eyes, face, or possibly like this, or possibly like this, but definitely not this one. Now, if you tell me it was painted by Picasso, and wow, everybody knows who Picasso is. And for those of us who don't know Picasso, Picasso was born in Spain. He was a child genius. He devoted himself to an artistic production that contributed significantly to the whole development of modern art in the 20th century. And to top it all, Dora Maar, which is the painting which depicts Picasso's mistress, was auctioned for $95.2 million to an anonymous buyer. A normal reaction would be like, I will give it a second thought. And I will start thinking, something might be wrong with me. It's a $95 million piece painted by Picasso, the genius, the father of modern arts. And I will start justifying how I should like it. On a second thought, actually, I like the design of the dress. I found the hat very creative. I'm not sure of the face, but I think Picasso was a genius and a courageous man to disfigure the human face. You know, I'm still resisting to accept an ugly thing. But did I say disfigure? Sorry, I meant to reinvent. I can now see its beauty. I think I like it. I like it. I surely like it. There is something wrong with anyone who doesn't like it. I'm ready to defend it as a matter of principle and oppose those who don't like it. That process, it's because tastes and values are molded by individuals' experiences and their culture. These states are acquired and then wired into the brain. We are unable to distinguish our second nature from our original nature because our neuroplastic brains, once rewired, developed a new nature every bit as biological as our original. Come to think about it, a lot of our values, states, and beliefs are our second nature. With the right knowledge and the right tools, the human race is being intentionally manipulated to switch to a second nature, nearly in every aspect of its life, in our diets, looks, political views, values, and religious beliefs. Together in this presentation, we'll explore the extent of influence our children are getting to bring out in them a second nature, completely the opposite of their original nature. The man who views the world at 50, the same as he did at 20, has wasted 30 years. So sit down, relax, open your mind, drop your prejudices, and let's together make a next maybe 40 or 30 minutes a progressive time. Colonizing the world. Most countries in the world fell sometimes in their history under what is known as colonization. In this map, I'm talking of Africa in particular. The color blue are countries that were colonized by France. The ones in red were colonized by Britain. And I can have the one that is only won by Belgium, which is Congo. It's close to, let's say, creamy color. What is trying to communicate here? If you look at the day the countries got their independence, from Congo to Mali or Senegal up there, it was all 1960. Congo, Gabon, Central Africa, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, they all got their independence in 1960. My question is, the colonial power were like, they're satisfied, they fulfilled their greed and decided, oh, it's time to leave and leave these people to live a wonderful life. We have taken enough, we have stolen resources and we should leave them alone. There was no major event or like a major revolution that made them to get weaker and leave. It was a predetermined, matured decision that they took to leave, and they left all together, different countries at the same time, because they have made a long-term colonialism that does not require them to be on the ground. So before colonialism, they used to come as soldiers carrying the flag of their countries, and I claim this land in the name of His Majesty. But after independence, it changed. They now come in corporate suits carrying the flag of IMF, which represents International Monetary Fund, and they will say, I structurally adjust this land in the name of economic growth. Colonialism was cleverly replaced by debt. I will loan you money, but I will write you financial policies and I take your financial decisions. $76.6 trillion is the world external debt estimated as December 2017. External debt is the portion of a country's debt that is borrowed from a foreign lender through commercial banks, governments, or international financial institutions. Nearly all the countries in the world are owing external debt. Below is the list of the top 10 in terms of value being owed. I said nearly all the countries in the world, plus minus about 4 countries that are not owing. If you can see big economics, big countries, countries that used to be colonial powers. You have from United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, China, Canada. They all have external debts. The question, who is lending the money? World Bank and IMF, their main source of funding comes from issuance of bonds into the capital market, that is private investors. The internet is full of pictures of various cities in the world where people demonstrate against the policies of the World Bank, the IMF, because every country they intervened and gave a loan and they made some structural adjustment plans, the countries suffered, the countries became poorer, and the hardship increased. Let's recap. The colonial powers that ruled nearly the entire world today are colonized by external debt. Nearly all the countries of the world are colonized by external debt. If you are so powerful, the elite, that you can invest in and finance World Bank and IMF lending operations, that the entire world, including the former colonial powers, are indirectly owing you money, where you control their economies through structural adjustment programs, how do you ensure you remain in this powerful position? Whoops, something is stuck here. Okay. By ensuring the people remain ignorant, not able to think for themselves, keeping them busy in things which keep them distracted from knowing the truth. Those who stand for nothing fall for anything, and the elites know this one very well. Again, those who stand for nothing fall for anything. For more than 85% of the world population, religious beliefs are the most important aspect of their life. In many instances, people are ready to fight to defend their beliefs. Hence, the powerful are planning, executing, and working hard to eliminate religion from people's hearts. It has been tried before. In the former USSR, the government created an anti-religious campaign. This is one of various posters that used to be in circulation at the time. If you see in this picture, 3 figures on the floor being knocked down. One is representing Islam, one is presenting Christianity, and one presenting Judaism. The campaign began in 1929 with the drafting of new legislation that severely prohibited religious beliefs and practices in order to further spread atheism. In the 1980s, under the reformist regime, a policy of openness was declared, allowing greater tolerance for the open practice of religion. The subsequent dissolution of the Soviet Union made religious freedom a reality and revealed that large section of the population has continued to practice a variety of faiths. That is about 50 years after they prevented any religious belief. And when they relaxed it, they found that a large section of the population had continues to practice a variety of faiths. Conclusion: forcing people to change their beliefs does not work, but making people to choose not to believe works very well. The word choose is a trick. The illusion of choice. It's a psychological mental model that states humans are happy if they believe they have control over their own actions and can exercise free will. An example, media consolidation, the illusion of choice. Media has never been more consolidated. 6 media giants now control staggering 90% of what we read, watch, or listen. So by the time you have your remote control flipping from one station to the other, they all belong to the 6 media giants corporation. So it seems like you have a choice, but for their policy is one, and what they have in mind is one. To aid the choice, there are various scientific techniques being used. One of them is called the Hegelian dialectic. It's named after this gentleman, Mr. Hegel, and it states, it is the critical process by which the ruling elite create a problem, participating in advance, anticipating in advance the reaction that the population will have to the given crisis, and thus conditioning the people that a change is needed. When the population is properly conditioned, the desired agenda of the ruling elite is presented as the solution. The solution is not intended to solve the problem, but rather to serve as the basis for a new problem or make the existing one worse. Example, if the government have an agenda for centralization of power, then they use terrorism or manufactured terrorism threats to scare the people. And the debates will start coming up that we need to have more police involvement, more surveillance, more cameras, for example, and that will lead to decision. And those decision will mean removal of freedoms, and that will transfer of power from the many to the few, which means they will have achieved the original desire, which is centralization of power. Generations by age grouping. Luckily for me, I'm still in Generation X. I'm sure most of you attending today are under Generation X, Millennials, or maybe Generation Z. As I've learned from experience, when I give my presentation and I have in mind it's for the benefits of the children, we adults can also get inspired and benefit from it. So learning has no age limits. But in this presentation, I'm hoping to make you commit to empower Generation Z and Generation Alpha to think and choose wisely. When I say Z and Alpha, because Millennials and Generation X is like it's a bit too late for us to have a mind change. It's not impossible, but it's a bit hard. Generation Z. Atheism is on the rise in Generation Z. Teens 13 to 18 years old are twice as likely as adults to say they are atheists. That is 13% compared to 6%. There are many factors responsible for the rise, one of which is education. My daughter finished from American University in Washington, D.C. I once entered to her room after she graduated and she got her books back home, the ones she took at school. And I picked one, and it was this book, Nomad, by a writer called Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And I read it. And I was a bit surprised by the content. And for you to know who's Ayaan Hirsi Ali, this is her beliefs. I do not believe in God, angels, and the hereafter. Now, the question, teaching my daughter the writings of someone who does not believe in God, is it a coincidence or is it systemic? The answer is in the next 10 slides. Dr. Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. He wrote the World Core Curriculum Manual, which was adopted by United Nations. Robert Mueller is known as father of global education. He received the UNESCO Peace Education Prize in 1989 for his World Core Curriculum, a global education program. This is what he has to say. We must move as quickly as possible to a one-world government, a one-world religion, and under a one-world leader. Notice the one-world religion, because we'll soon see which one-world religion he has in mind. This is the Robert Mueller School copy of a World Core Curriculum Manual. From the preface of the manual, we read this. The underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Mueller School is based will be found in the teachings set forth in the books of Alice Bailey. Now, who's Alice Bailey? Alice Bailey, she was a writer of, something is blocking my screen, of 24 books on theosophical subjects, was one of the first writers to use the term New Age. This is the Theosophical Society logo. I don't know if you notice a snake around the Star of David. Now, since we're talking of theosophical, it would be nice to see what is theosophy. Helena Blavatsky, Theosophy is a religious movement established in the United States during the late 19th century. It was founded largely by Helena Blavatsky and draws its beliefs predominantly from Blavatsky's beliefs. So, what are Blavatsky's beliefs? It is Satan who is the God of our planet and the only God. Lucifer Lucifer is another name for Satan. Lucifer represents life, thought, progress, civilization, liberty, independence. Lucifer is the Logos, the serpent, the savior. This is Prometheus. He's from the Greek mythology where God is called Zeus. He had a reputation as being something of a clever trickster, and he famously gave the human race the gift of fire and the skill of metalwork, an action for which he was punished by Zeus. Hence also the curse pronounced by Zeus against Prometheus and by God against Satan. So there's a similarity between the two scenarios where God punished Satan because he went against his command, and where Zeus punished Prometheus. Now, the above picture is from the statue for Prometheus, and it is located in the Rockefeller Plaza in New York. Now, who's Rockefeller? In 1902, John Rockefeller created the General Education Board, education, at the ultimate cost of $129 million. The General Education Board provided major funding for schools across the nation and was very influential in shaping the current school system. Let's recap. Rockefeller donated $8.5 million that the United Nations used in buying the land from a developer. Dr. Robert Miller, a former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, wrote the World Core Curriculum Manual. The manual is based on the teachings set forth in the books of Alice Bailey. Bailey wrote books on theosophical subjects influenced by Blavatsky's teachings. Blavatsky believes Satan is God. Rockefeller decorates his plaza with Prometheus statue, who has a resemblance to the curse on Satan by God. Rockefeller created and sponsored the General Education Board. The UNESCO, United Nations, in 1968 provided the funding to create the International Baccalaureate. Alice Bailey 10 Points Charter. There's the famous 10-point charter or 10 points plan on the internet attributed to Alice Bailey. There's no proof that she actually wrote it, but it's based on her teaching. So the 10 points, if you go back to her teachings, yes, they match her teaching. So it may be a set of plan that she wrote, or maybe somebody wrote it based on our teachings. But what is important that those 10 points have been happening and they are still happening. Let's quickly browse through them. The first one, take God and prayer out of the education system. The second, reduce parental authority over the children, which is happening. We all know it's happening. Number three, destroy the Judeo-Christian, my emphasis, all religions, family structure, and happening. Number four, if sex is free, then make abortion legal and make it easy, happening. Number five, make divorce easy and legal, free people from the concept of marriage for life, happening. Number six, make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle, happening. Number seven, debase art, make it run mad. We just had a run through a $95 million painting that has debased the art, the face of a human being. Use media to promote and change mindsets. We also have just seen that 6 giant companies control 90% of what we read and see. Create an interfaith movement. It's happening a lot. Get governments to make all these laws and get the church, my emphasis, religious institutions to endorse these changes. So whether she wrote them in this sequence or whether they were taken out of her own teachings is irrelevant, but they are actually happening. We will take just number one, take God and prayer out of the education system. Alice Bailey said, change curriculum to ensure that children are freed from the bondage of Christian, my emphasis, religious culture. Why? Because children are willing to value what is being given to them. If you take God out of education, they will unconsciously form a resolve that God is not necessary to face life. They will focus on those things that the school counts worthy to be passed on, and they will look at God as an additional, if one can afford the additional. Apart from that, we're being taught wrong theories, and theories that will help to make us doubt our faith. We're all familiar of Darwinism, which is the evolution theory. The aim of Darwin's theory is to turn the believers away from the religion, to harm their faith, and to make them suspicious about the religion. Why? Because if there was no creation and we just evolved from nowhere, it means there was no God because there's no creator. But it's a wrong theory. For example, these are all the components that go into making a car. Each of these components was designed by an engineer, produced after a lot of research and study, assembled together to give us a car. According to the evolution theory, each of these components designed itself, manufactured itself, then they all met in a kind of an explosion and formed the car. The same applied to the Big Bang theory. That is the creation of the universe. It just developed by itself, and this is where we had a moon and a sun and a planet, and everything just organized itself by itself. Now, scientists, more than 1,000 scientists, signed the dissent from Darwin theory. This is a copy of the dissent. We are skeptical of claims for the ability of a random mutation and natural selection to account for the complexity of life. Careful examination of the evidence for Darwinian theory should be encouraged. I will take some few people that has an effect on education, then we move to another subject. John Dewey, why am I picking him up? Because he's the father of American progressive education. He is the most influential thinker of modern education. What does he have to say about religion and God? There is no God and there is no soul. Hence, there is no need for the props of traditional religion. With dogma and creed excluded, then immutable truth is dead and buried. There is no room for fixed and natural law or permanent moral absolutes. What I have just showed you is not a master plan for education. It is a part of a much bigger plan. I only wanted to show you a sample of how ideas and beliefs are systematically and gradually implanted into our children's heads. Measured by academic achievement, atheists in many places tend to have college degrees or general knowledge of the collection of beliefs around the world. We just discussed a bit earlier that where people live in uncertainty and poverty, there is literally no atheism. Where more people more comfortable in their life, they are more atheists. If you take by this measured by academic achievement, it means the education system I just hinted at has been working and is successful in making people more atheist. If you still believe that the above presentation about education is a coincidence, has nothing to do with the powerful elites, let us round up this discussion with one more example. This is Friedrich Nietzsche. I've tried to practice his name many times. I don't know if I've got it right. He's a German philosopher whose work has exerted a profound influence on Western philosophy and modern intellectual history. What does he have to say? He says God is dead, but given something is blocking my screen, there may still be caves for thousands of years in which his shadow will be shown. We still have to vanquish his shadow too. Now, let's have the next slide, which is his picture when he was a younger man. Just a quick one. To the right is Nietzsche as a young man. Notice his hand in his jacket. This is very important. It's not a random pose. This is known as the sign of the master of the second veil. It belongs to a certain organization, the Masons. And if you think this is a coincidence for him, check most world leaders: Karl Marx, Napoleon, Stalin, Washington, Lenin, Rothschild, Lafayette, Ataturk. This cannot be just a random picture. This is not Napoleon official portrait, and he just felt like he has a stomach ache, or he just wanted to scratch his tummy, and the painter painted him in that position. It was purposely did this way. This is not a photograph, this is a painting. So painting, or the one of Washington, the painter must have purposely painted them in that position because they belong to a group, to a clique, elite, power, and that was a sign to show that they belong to that group. The above is an example of world leaders and influencers. The hand sign is intentional. Now I'm going to read, but please do not look at the letters as I read them. Just look at the picture so that you will understand it better. Have your sight on the picture and allow me to read. This is the allegory of the cave by Plato. In the allegory, Plato describes prisoners chained in a cave, unable to turn their heads. You see them by the left, two of them sitting back in a wall. All they can see is the wall of the cave in front of them. Behind them, you can see it on the right, burns a fire. Between the fire and the prisoners, there is a parapet along which puppeteers can walk. The puppeteers who are behind the prisoners hold up puppets that cast shadows on the walls of the cave. The prisoners are unable to see these puppets, the real objects that pass behind them. What the prisoners see and hear are shadows and echoes cast by objects that they do not see. You can see the shadows on the wall or to the left. The inmates of this place do not even desire to leave their prison, for they know no better life. Have this in mind. In the next slide, we'll discuss it. 18 firms control nearly the entire web. So if we talk of, for example, Facebook is in the center. Facebook owns Instagram, owns WhatsApp. So no matter what media you're using, plus minus, you are one of the customers of Facebook. Now I want you to think of the web and your involvement in social media in relationship with the allegory of the cave, modern allegory of the cave. We actually sit down and watch shadows, if I want to say, just like the people who sat down in the cave. The human condition is forever bound to the impressions that are received through the senses. Even if these interpretations are an absurd misrepresentation of reality, we cannot somehow break free from the bonds of our human condition. Now, gradually everything is becoming online. We can shop online, we can do our documentations, our papers online, we can school online. We are in the cave. And the things that we continuously look at are not real. They are misrepresentations. I mean, we look at people we follow and see them with their full makeup, full dresses, and we don't see them when they wake up from in the morning, how they look like. We don't see that their table, maybe they have one plate for supper or dinner, and it's not nicely presented, but we can see pictures when the food is wow, and it's just coming from a restaurant. We live a life just like the people in the cave. We are prisoners to this little device that we have in our hand. Who are the new atheists? New atheism is the name given to the ideas promoted by a collection of modern atheist writers who have advocated the view that religion should not simply be tolerated. Religion should not simply be tolerated, but should be countered, criticized, and exposed by rational argument wherever its influence arises. Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, and Sam Harris. Richard Dawkins is the most prominent among the new atheists. He did a bus campaign in London, and this is a London bus decorated by his campaign. There is probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life. The religion of today, for most young generation, is the religion of hedonism. That is, the culture is becoming a hedonistic environment in which we are more concerned about the worship of pleasure than we are in the worship of God. It would be nice, it's a quick one, to understand the differentiation between atheist, agnostic, and theist. An agnostic atheist says, I lack belief in a God, but don't deny, we can't know for 100% sure that there is no God. So it's like he doesn't believe, but he's not sure whether there is or there's not. The gnostic atheists, I lack belief in a God, and I'm 100% sure there's no God. The agnostic theist, I believe there is a God, but don't claim to know for sure. Gnostic theist, I believe there is a God and know with certainty that he exists. I'm a gnostic theist. I believe there is a God and know with certainty that he exists. Do you choose your religion? Theist says non-believers deliberately disregard important evidence and are thus unjustifiably skeptical. They know that there is a God, but willfully ignore this knowledge and believe the opposite due to rebellion, pain, or some other cause. Atheists say believers are overly naive, believing things much too easily and readily than reason or logic can justify. If beliefs aren't voluntarily acts of will, what causes our beliefs? To most of us, we became who we are by being labeled at birth through the religion of our parents. Just some very, very few of us, when we grew up, decided to take another path. But for most of us, we stick to what we met ourselves with. It is not uncommon for a person to realize that they have simply lost the ability to have blind faith in the claims made by religious tradition and religious leaders. They are no longer willing to shut away their doubts and questions. If this person then fails to find any rational reasons to continue believing in religious dogmas, those beliefs will simply fall away. Eventually, even the belief in a God will fall away, rendering that person an atheist, not by choice, but instead simply because belief is no longer possible. Now, because of such thinking, there is this advice or move now to allow the children to choose. Please don't label children, let them grow up and choose their religion. On the look of it, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, religion is supposed to be by will, it's not compulsory, and there's nothing wrong with people choosing their own religion. But there's a trick. For me to have a choice between left and right or right and wrong, I must have enough knowledge of both and be able to take a decision which one I feel more comfortable with. But the way it is going now, if I take left or I take right, I'm still going to the same destination. I have an illusion of free choice. But as I said earlier, the children are destined now or being prepared to go to the winning choice, which is no religion, by design, by education, by influences, and by the right tools. So by the time media is portraying religious people as terrorists or pedophiles, it portrays atheists as role models. Fear not hell, for if it exists, you shall find yourself in good company. Tom and Jerry. We all love Tom and Jerry, a very innocent cartoon, but sometimes it is not. In this particular episode of Tom and Jerry, in the scene, Tom and Jerry visit a producer to take an acting role. The Hollywood producer in the blue suit, together with his assistants, get a call, and they get on their knees to answer a call from the president of Hollywood. When the president of Hollywood's image materializes inside a strange cylinder-like apparatus, which shows on the left, he has the outline of the devil, which is on the corner upper right. Immediately, the producer and his assistant, they bow down, heads down. It is in a prayer kind of position. Eventually, Tom and Jerry sign a contract selling their soul to the devil to get the acting role. Now, the devil they signed the contract with, it's called Baphomet. He's very popular in the music industry and among celebrities. Most of our kids know the figure. They may not have sat down to read his name or what is it about, but at least they might have seen his figure in their dressing, in their acts, in their music. Examples, you could see the Baphomet on the chest and the round figure and this celebrity. You can see Madonna with Baphomet to the right. This is called like above, like below. He has one hand pointed above and one hand pointed below. And she's doing the same like above, like below, and she has two horns. I mean, if you see a woman with the horns, if you still don't suspect that there's a message behind it, you better think again. You could see Baphomet on his right leg trouser. This is Lady Gaga. She's the most prominent, showing us different type of horns all through. And now, because of COVID and the mandatory mask, this is her mask. If you still think Baphomet is something just related to the music industry, see this. The ones on the left, they are attendees of a First Amendment rally held by the Satanic Temple. Listen to a speaker on Thursday, August 16, 2018, in Little Rock, Ark. The Satanic Temple wants to install a statue of Baphomet, a winged goat creature, on Capitol grounds as a symbol for religious freedom after a monument of the Ten Commandments was installed in 2017. And this is a closer look of the monument on the same trailer being prepared to install in front of the Capitol. We are very familiar with the programs now like Nigerian Idol, American Idol, Arab Idol, British Idol. What is idol according to the dictionary? Is an image or representation of a god used as an object of worship. So celebrities are gradually becoming like gods to our own children. The term celebrity worship syndrome first appeared in an article in 2003, Do You Worship the Celebrities? By James Chapman in Daily Mail, in which the obsessive addictive disorder is defined as when a person becomes overly involved with the details of a celebrity's life. Some of the traits of this condition are very similar to the traits of worshiping a religious deity, and escape from reality, desire, lust, admiration, are familiar traits found both in celebrity worship and religious devotion to God. Now, as parents, what can I do to help? First of all, don't get carried away and decide to block your children from the word. And I've seen it happening before. Parents will get excited after my talk and just want to go and like block their children from everything. No internet, no phone, no TV, etc. That is not the solution, because that would be counterproductive. Secondly, we all have our various beliefs, hence there is no fixed solution that we can all follow. Our individual opinions and prejudices will stand in the way. The following are some general tips to apply and use to help our children make an informed decision. If you search for me with all your heart, you will find me. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13. Our original nature believes in a creator. We need to raise our children to maintain this original nature and encourage them to dig and look for the best way to get to know their creator through an informed decision. Coexist. It's a new movement that is concentrating on accepting each other's faith diversity of religion. It's very beautiful. I encourage. It is nice, but it's coming in a way where coexist means I do not discuss with you. I do not raise issues that are religious. We just tolerate each other. And so it ends up being like we are being told to avoid talking about politics and religion, has led to a lack of understanding of politics and religion. What we should have been taught was how to have a civil conversation about a difficult topic. Religion has a lot in common and fewer disagreements, but it is always the differences that are pointed out. 3 of the world major religions, the monotheist traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, were all born in the Middle East and are all linked to one another in a way that is impossible to separate. Now, what we need to start doing is beginning spiritual conversation in the early years with our children, builds a foundation for conversations to continue in the teen years. Create an environment for spiritual discussions. Don't fear or freak out when they ask questions. Encourage research and exploration. Asking questions can help you understand your teen rather than just answer your teen. If your child is doubting the inerrancy of the sacred book, questions like, when did you first start having doubts about it? And is there something it teaches that is bothering you and making you unsure about God's goodness? Can provide needed insight. There are various topics now, it just hints, as I said. I'm jumping to Abraham. Abraham is very, very popular in the monotheistic traditions I just mentioned. He has a variety of his name spelling in various cultures. Abram, Ibrahim, Abraham, all means Abraham, the one we all know. Now, Abraham, according to the Bible, Romans 4, verse 11, the father of those having faith, of all those having faith. You descendants of Abraham, my friend, Isaiah 41:18. God calls a human being my friend. Abraham, whom Allah took for a friend. Quran, chapter 4, verse 125. You can see the Bible and the Quran. God calls Abraham my friend. Brahmins in India are linked to Abraham. I see a lot of similarity between the name Abraham and Brahma. And if we're still in doubt, Abraham's wife was called Sarah, and Brahma's wife was Saraswati. Abraham said, my Lord, show me how you bring the dead back to life. He, Allah, said, have you no faith in this? Abraham humbly replied, I do believe, but I ask this to reassure my heart. This is from Quran, chapter 2, verse 260. This is a very important verse. Why? Abraham, being the friend of Allah, means he's a believer, he's close, he's so special, he still asked to see, to reassure his heart. God is not a storyteller. God tells us these stories so he can teach us that it is okay for you to doubt. Having doubts about your faith may feel scary, but is actually extremely normal. We need to encourage our children to ask questions and not to be afraid to ask questions. This is important. The important thing is never to stop questioning. Albert Einstein. A wise man can learn from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. You could take something like this, print it out, put it on the door or on the board of your child room, just an inspiration. A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. Is that you encourage him to ask questions, no matter how stupid that question seems to be. It would be nice to look at this Dunning-Kruger effect. There are 2 scientists, and it is named after them. Dunning-Kruger effect is a type of cognitive bias in which people believe that they are smarter and more capable than they really are. Essentially, low-ability people do not possess the skills needed to recognize their own incompetence. This is the effect. When people know nothing to the left, their confidence level is very high because they have no much information. With the little information they have, they feel they have conquered it all. And at their peak, it is called the peak of Mount Stupid. Now, when they begin to learn further, they realize that they have overestimated themselves and they actually crash down to what they call Valley of Despair, because they realize that the little knowledge they have is not enough to put them on that peak. And with more knowledge, they become wiser, and then we have to the slope of the enlightenment till they get to the plateau of the sustainability, which is still lower. That is when they become experts, is still lower than the peak of Mount Stupid. A little philosophy inclines man's mind to atheism, but depth in philosophy brings men's mind about to religion. So what's happening now, our children are being given little information to teach them, to trigger in them the doubts about their religion. Without reading their religion, without further investigating, they take it at first, at its face value, and they quickly jump to conclusion that it is not okay, and they believe they know it all. And they go and sit down proudly at the peak of Mount Stupid. We need to teach our children to judge the scriptures, not the followers. When judging religion, check the ideology, not what people do. Should we judge Islam with Bin Laden or judge Christianity with Hitler? Not only did the terrorists hijack planes and destroy life, but they also hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam and split the brother and sisterhood of mankind. Cat Stevens, I agree. But the Quran does not say go and hijack planes. It says whoever kills an innocent person, it is as if he has killed all of humanity. Quran chapter 5, verse 32. I will advise if parents print this one, it is the same Kruger effect, and just share it with the little ones. Just to say when a child starts saying, I know it all, I know it all, I know everything, just explain the childhood, and when they start learning how they grow up on the growing graph, it might be a nice one to start a discussion with the kids. This is another one you also can share with your kids. My brain is like a muscle. The more I read, the more I train it, the more it grows. Intelligence is highly malleable and can be developed by hard work. A fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. We all know the story of the rabbit and the, oh my God. We know the story where he went to sleep because believing she's too slow and she can't catch up, and eventually he lost the race because he has a fixed mindset that he knows it all. Intellectual humility is often described as an intellectual virtue along with other perceived virtues such as open-mindedness, intellectual courage, and integrity, and in contrast to proposed intellectual vices, just as pride and arrogance. At my school here, this is what we try to achieve with the kids. As parents, I also want to implore you to work on this. Print the next graph, which is this, share it with your children and discuss it. Now, a child that will never change and believe that he doesn't want to get to know more things, stubborn, and a child that believes anything, gullibility, is not what we want. We want an intellectual humility where I'm fully willing to change my mind if I find evidence that I need to. The evolution of the underwear. Don't see your faces now. Normally when I discuss this, people start smiling. The evolution of the underwear, there is this tendency that is freedom in the Western world. It's related to exposure of skin. So when we talk of freedom, it's most likely our mind goes, oh, I can dress, I can undress, and feel free about it. Now I'm using this, I want parents to be able to create avenues where you dialogue and discuss with your children. And this is a scenario, I'll complete it now. I have two ladies here, one is fully covered and one is undressed. The one that is undressed thinks everything covered but her eyes. what a cruel male-dominated culture. And the other one says, nothing is covered but her eyes, what a cruel male-dominated culture. Now, we also have this picture where in France, they said you are not allowed to be on the beach if you are not going to undress, because some Muslim women went and they were covered. And this was actually a real picture where the police forced a woman to undress on the beach or would be arrested. A cartoon came up after that in the French newspapers, and it was in the name of freedom, undress. That was like the police officer. Now, you could put this in front of you and have a discussion with your children. What do you think about this scenario? Is freedom related to exposing more skin? Who is more right, the one that is covered or the one that is uncovered? Were the police right to take such a decision, or they overdid it? This is how you start making children to become smarter on what they are and engage them in a way that could be positive. This is just an example of a scenario. Everyday scenarios can come up. You can be reading the news and something come up, political, religious, wherever. We don't tend to engage our children now. Most of the times it's just gaming and fun and gaming and fun, and that's it. The truth fears no investigation. As you are trying to open your heart and drop your prejudices and allow your children to explore so that they can have an informed decision, you may be afraid that they're going to change to another religion, and that could scare you. It's a difficult situation because, as I explained, there's a tendency that they are leaving you quite all right.
Mute yourself.
Okay, so the truth fears no investigation means that should empower you. If your faith is so shaking that once I investigated, I'm going to leave it, then you shouldn't be that worried. You should also go and investigate further. So if you have that in mind and you're no longer afraid, you are going to allow your children to embrace cultures and religious diversity, where they can read whatever they want, so they can come up with an informed decision. We need to teach them, and you can print this one and give it to them in the room. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. Francis Bacon. If you put red ants and black ants in a jar, at first holding the jar, nothing will happen. But if you violently shake the jar and dump the ants back on the ground, the ants will fight until they all kill each other. The black ants think the red ants are the enemy, vice versa, when in reality, the real enemy is the guy who shook the jar. This is what is happening in society today. Left versus right, black versus white, pro-mask versus anti-mask. What we should be asking is who is shaking the jar and why? And I've explained earlier who has the benefit to rule the world and make us as dumb or as informed as we are. Not to fall in the hate cycle trap. Who is this? Okay. Now, Christianity, Islam, no religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, more than 70% of the world's population are either Christians, Muslim, or Hindus. It is the interest of the powerful elite to make them hate, doubt, and fight each other. The most reported story in mainstream media, which is owned and controlled by the powerful elite, is about radical Islam hating Christianity. I want each child, if possible, to learn that Islam loves Christianity and Christianity loves Islam. But the Quran, the Quran doesn't say radical Islam should kill Christianity. The Quran says otherwise. And you will find that the nearest in genuine love towards those who have attained faith are those who said, we are Christians. That is because among them are priests and monks, and because they are not arrogant. That is Quran chapter 5, verse 82. Christians pray to God. Muslims pray to Allah. Where is that coming from? I mean, in Nigeria here, it's very common. Before we start any meeting, we call someone to do a prayer. And if you notice deliberately, when it is a Muslim person praying, he will pray in the name of Allah. But if he's a Christian, he will pray in the name of God. So where is that difference coming from? Let's take in Matthew 27, verse 46. My God, why have you forsaken me? If you read it again in Matthew, it says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Meaning, Eli, Eli, lima sabachthani. In another place, it comes up in Mark, but it doesn't say Eli, Eli. It says in Mark 15:34, it says, Eloi, Eloi, lima sabachthani. The English word God is used by multiple religions as a noun or name to refer to different deities, or specifically to the supreme being as denoted in English by the capitalized and uncapitalized terms God and God. There is a standard rule in translation. Names keep themselves. They are never translated. You may translate the meaning of the name, but the name will ever be the same. Now, the Arab Christians in the Arabic Bible, the name is, it says like this. Jesus said, Ili, Ili, lima shabaqtani, means Ilahi, Ilahi, limada taraktani. There's Ilahi, Ilahi. Then the translation of in Mark, where it says Eloi, Eloi, it's also Ilahi, Ilahi. Now, the names that appear to God in the Old Testament and the Bible is El, Elohim, Eloh, Elohi. So it's very close for pronunciation to the Arabic or the Muslim's name of Ilahi. Ilahi means my God. Ilah means God. Now, I'm just bringing this up to show how close these two religions are. Now, on the 17th day of 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. That is, we are talking about the Noah's Ark. Some people believe the original Noah's Ark is buried under an ark-shaped formation in eastern Turkey, very close to Mount Ararat. And that is the shape, how it looks like. This was discovered about 100 years ago. Accordingly, Noah's instructions are given to him by God in Genesis chapter 6, verses 14 to 16. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. The Bible, especially the Old Testament and the Quran, have a lot of similar events and stories. The Bible goes into details, the Quran is very brief. Taking Noah's Ark as an example, Quran has no dimensions for the ark. The book of Genesis dimensions were used to confirm the authenticity of the discovery. It's about time Christians and Muslims begin to see their sacred books as complementing each other. Next is an example how this can work. God ended his work after the creation in Genesis of the earth. God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. A similar story in the Quran, chapter 32, verse 4. It is Allah who created the heavens and the earth and whatever is between them in 6 days. Then he established himself above the throne. Now there's a problem. Science says the earth could have taken thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years to develop to what we have seen it today. It cannot be done in days, in 6 days. Now, if we now take the two books as complementing each other, and we say further, what does the Quran say about a day? This is from the Quran, chapter 32, verse 5. He, that is God, arranges each matter from the heaven to the earth, and it will ascend to him in a day, the extent of which is 1,000 years of those which you count. So a day for in God is 1,000 days of the ones we count. In another instance, also in the Quran, chapter 70, verse 4, the angels and the spirit, that is Gabriel, will ascend to him during a day, the extent of which is 50,000 years. So we can now see that the time of Allah is incomparable to earthly time. This verse generally means that the time of Allah is incomparable to earthly time. The examples given are of 1,000 years and 50,000 years. Day means period. The Arabic word used in all these three verses is yawm, which beside meaning a day also means a long period. If you translate the word yawm correctly as a period, there will be no confusion. Now, by having the two books together, so the word day, which is also an English translation from the original word, should have meant period. Humanist is another name for atheism. I'm a humanist. If you are hungry, I'll offer you food. If you are thirsty, I'll offer you water. If you are cold, I'll offer you warmth. If you are in need, ask and I will give, and so on. Humanists try to show they are very good people and being a good person without the threat of hell or the reward of heaven. I'm an atheist by definition. I'm a humanist at heart. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all beautiful. But I mean, religion is meant to be humanists. It's like God says, like in the 10 Commandments, be good to parents, don't kill, don't steal, don't be a false witness, don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't commit adultery, less one day in a week. So for somebody to come and steal all those good virtues that God asks us to do and give it a name called humanism, and it's like if it's a new religion of its own, why won't I do it being a religious person believing in God? And so what if I'm afraid of a punishment or looking for a reward? By the end of the day, it's the same thing. Generation Z wants to make logic of everything. Think of a plane. We take a flight knowing very well it will be at 30,000 feet above ground during the flight. Even though we don't know how the plane works, we still take the flight. Our decision is based purely on perception and faith. That is, that it will be okay. Not every question or observation about religion has a logical answer. There will always be some we cannot comprehend. We tend to see God's orders and direction through our own logic. Meanwhile, we don't know how God's logic works. Generation Z can be encouraged to ask and doubt, but a bit of faith means to be nourished. God, being the boss, has the final say regardless of how we feel about it. Sobande, I'm taking too much time. Should I, or I can continue?
Yes, please go ahead. We'll get to the Q&A session very soon, I'm sure.
Okay, I will try to round up in the next 5 to 7 minutes, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The early adolescence, which is age 12 to 15, is the age of experimentation. Most people across the US, I'm using US as an example because they have viable statistics, are getting married between the ages of 25 and 30. Men are on average slightly older when they first get married than women. If they are to obey religious rules, they are expected to abstain from sex, making them sexually repressed. That is really very hard. It's like people on a diet continuously thinking about food. If men and women abstain from sex from teenage till getting married, it means they have controlled the urges and average for between 10 to 18 years. Everything around them is sex, movies, songs, internet, adverts, celebrities, etc., making it even harder to abstain. To them, sex before marriage, according to religion, is a big no, but in their daily life, it's a big, easy yes. If they could not hold themselves for that long and had a sexual relationship before marriage, they are considered sinners, making them feeling condemned. If people are raised up believing they are condemned, their relationship with God and religion will start taking a dip and will sink further into more sinful acts. Sex is the main reason why most of the younger ones go away from religion, because they know they're doing something they're not supposed to do according to the religion. So they're under conflict. It's either they believe the religion is not right or I'm not right. So by the time they started believing I'm already condemned in the eyes of religion, I'm already going to hell, so pretty let me go and live my life since I'm not going to do it well. So the overemphasis on sin, 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 without giving us a room or a door for forgiveness or for excuses, it makes the children more vulnerable to the new choice, which is non-believing. Now, this is an advert of Dolce & Gabbana. It's just a jeans advert. If there's no sex in this advert, I'm sorry, but it's all about sex. It has nothing to do with clothes. This is a sample of what our children are exposed to. Now, if you take statistics on porn, it says 70% of men ages 18 to 34 visit a porn site in a typical month. 1 in 6 women struggles with porn addiction. Every second, 28,258 people view porn. Every minute, $184,500 is spent on porn, and so on and so on and so on. The largest consumers of pornography are 12 to 17 years old boys. 90% of children ages 8 to 16 have viewed porn. Now, with all this struggle, with all this trouble, somebody comes and say masturbation is a sin. So I put you as a child in a place where everything around you is sex. I say you are not supposed to do anything unless you get married. Then if you have a pleasure with yourself on your own, it's also considered a sin. What are the children supposed to do? And what room do we give them to look forward that they are not condemned? Has my sexual sin made me unsavable? The trap of the sin, a child feeling condemned by the divine, is likely candidate for atheism. It's either sin will keep you from the book, or the book will keep you from the sin. Like if you are a believer, you follow the book, you try to hold yourself, you don't do sinful acts, or because you did sins, you leave the book. In John 6, verse 37, whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. Do not let your mistakes take you away from God. Sex trafficking. I'm just hitting on this subject because pornography is very popular, and if you tell children not to watch, they will still watch. But with this generation, if you put some responsibility, they do listen. So if we take the issue of sex trafficking, where you may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not know. Save our children. Not only does the viewing of pornography create a demand for women and children to be sold for sexual acts in the safe grave, but many of the individuals portrayed in pornography are actually victims of sex trafficking. Viewing pornography distorts the views and values which partakers of pornography have of both men and children. So we have to take a stand. This is a beautiful one. It would take some time, but let me quickly leave it with you, as if you go back to the recording, you can read it. How can we believe in a God who allows evil and suffering? This is one of the most prominent questions this generation asks. It's like, where is God when he sees all this happening? Why is he not doing anything about it? I'll quote from the Quran, chapter 16, verses 61. Had Allah seized people on the spot for their transgression, he would not have left alive any living creature on the earth, but he respites all for an appointed term. The point is that God has created us for a certain period of time where we go back for a judgment day, during which he does not interfere. Sometimes I would like to ask God why he allows poverty, suffering, and injustice when he could do something about it, but I'm afraid he would ask me the same question. Today's society, most people are trying to take advantage of someone. I was fired from my dream job. My fiancé broke off our engagement, and my friends don't want to have anything to do with me. Why is God punishing me? Your faith will be tested. We will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and some loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. who, when disaster strike them, says, indeed, we belong to Allah, and indeed to him we will return. The future is not set, there is no fate, but what we make for ourselves. Also, this is important. Your cell phone can give you cancer. Driving and under the influence, you could cause an accident. The picture of two married couples with their 4 years old at the back seat, they were found unconscious because of drug overdose. Despite the many reports that having a cell phone close to your ear is likely to cause cancer due to its radiation, you still refuse to use the earpiece provided by the manufacturer to reduce the risk of using the phone. If you eventually become a cancer patient, did God give you cancer or you gave yourself cancer? Were you destined to have cancer or it is your free will that caused it? Generation Z, and for sure Generation Alpha as they grow up, tend to be angry with God when a major incident happens. And we as adults are responsible for that as we continuously harm our destiny and fate in every aspect of our life. For example, a friend dies in a car accident. Since we told them it is destiny, they will question the reason God decided to take their friend's life and form a resolve that God is unfair and does not worth worshiping. If we believe there is a day of judgment where our good deeds would be rewarded and our bad deeds would be punished, then it is only logical to realize we have the free will. Having said the above, there is still a time when Allah interferes due to invocation and prayer and answer one's request. And when my servants, that is we people, ask you, Muhammad, concerning me, indeed I'm near, I respond to an invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me by obedience and believe in me that they may be rightly guided. So God says he can answer our prayer. Why didn't God protect me from falling off my bike? I will answer, but perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you. Perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you know not. Now, a child falling off maybe the road, maybe at that instant on the junction, maybe before he left his house, mother has prayed, God save my child, and it just fell off. Can it be intervention of God? So because on the junction there was a speedy car and could have knocked him down? We don't know. There is a description of something like this, and I think I'm about to round up. That's why I'm rushing up because I took too much time. Moses is familiar in the Old Testament and is in Arabic is called Musa. Musa has an interaction with somebody called Al-Khidr, and it's very interesting. It's a bit long. I'll just browse quickly. Or let me just explain. Moses met a guy that he has knowledge from God, and Moses asked to follow him in his journey. And the guy said, you won't be able to have patience to what you see because you don't have the knowledge that I do. And Moses promised to be quiet and just follow him. So they proceeded in their journey. And let me go to where it started in this paragraph. So they set out until when they had embarked on the ship. So he, Al-Khidr, tore it open. Moses said, have you torn it open to drown its people? You have certainly done a great thing. Al-Khidr said, didn't I say that with me you would never be able to have patience? Moses said, don't blame me for what I forgot and do not overwhelm me in my matter with difficulty. So they set out until they met a boy and Al-Khidr killed him. Moses said, have you killed a pure soul for other than having killed a soul? You have certainly done a deplorable thing. Al-Khidr said, didn't I tell you you can't have patience? Moses said, I'm sorry, I will have patience. So they set out until they came out to the people who were the town, and people refused to offer them hospitality. And they found there in a wall that was about to fall, and Al-Khidr restored it. And Moses said, if you wished, you could have taken it for a payment. And this is where Al-Khidr said, you have no patience, and this is where we're going to party, but I will explain to you what you couldn't understand. As for the ship, it belonged to poor people working at sea. So I intended to cause defect in it as there was after them a king who seized every good ship by force. As for the boy, his parents were believers, and we feared that he would overburden them by transgression and disbelief. So we intended their Lord should substitute for them one better than him in purity and mutual humility. And as for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys in the city, and there was beneath it a treasure for them. And their father had been righteous, so your Lord intended that they reached maturity and extract their treasure as a mercy from your Lord. So if you look at this scenario, it's more likely, if you see Al-Qadr, more like what we call fate, or what we can assume the intervention of God. In some certain circumstances, God interfered for certain reasons. It goes beyond our ability to understand, because we don't know how God thinks. People of every religion claim to be having their prayers answered, so either God has no religion or God doesn't exist, and prayer is just confirmation bias code by your own belief. How can we be sure we are right when there are so many other religions in the world? I can see the answer in Corinthians in chapter 14, verse 33. God is not the author of confusion. Indeed, he is not. If you take all the prophets, if you look at this picture, this is the prophets in Islam, and they're into the left, and there's similar names in the Old Testament and the Bible. Idris is Enoch, Noah is Noah, Hud is Heber, go down to Lot is Lot, Ibrahim is Abraham, Ismail is Ishmael, Ishaq is Isaac, and so on. Now, if we take the Deuteronomy, all those ones preach that God is one. O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Jesus replied in Mark 12, 29 to 30, the most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And now in Islam, we also say in Quran, so we have believed in Allah. God says we should say we have believed in Allah, and whatever has been sent down on us, and whatever was sent down on Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob, and the tribes, and whatever was brought to Moses and Jesus and the prophets from their Lord. We make no distinction between any of them, and to him we are Muslims. Muslims mean we surrender. Feeding of the 5,000, that would take some time, but it's a similar story in the Quran. And I'll round up with these 2 little ones. There are little things we do, meaning no harm, but it unconsciously makes us rebel at God bit by bit. Now, if I'm a vegetarian, because I don't like the taste of the meat, there's nothing wrong in it. But if I become vegetarian because it's cruel to kill animals, I am a vegetarian because I realize that even little chickens suffer pain and fear, experience a range of feelings and emotions, and are intelligent as mammals, including dogs, cats, and even some primates. And if I don't eat meat because I consider it a murder, and that's why I became a vegetarian, it's a kind of a bit by bit rebellion against God. I'm not only saying that God, the creator, does not have mercy, that he created chickens for us to eat, and I have mercy more than God, the creator. Just a quick one. If you search on YouTube, animals submit to slaughter when hear the name of Allah, you find somebody who brings the goat, and just by whispering the name Allah in the ear of the goat just relaxes and surrenders and gives its neck for slaughter. You can try it. It's that I tried it also here one day in my place. There are little things we do, meaning no harm, but it unconsciously make us rebel at God bit by bit. God said we should dread modesty. Then by the time we start going bit by bit on rest, and let's say if I want to go swimming, so if I say it's old school not to go swimming, it's a bit by bit rebellion against God and formation. Thank you, I'll stop for here. It was hard talking to myself all the time, not seeing reactions, but at least I survived it. And I thank you for your patience if you are still there. And back to you, Sobande.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh. We are all here. All the participants are still here, Mr. Foudeh. We are all listening to you. Thank you so much for that very insightful and informative session. So now for Q&A. We're moving on to the Q&A session. Parents, you can ask your questions now, please. You can indicate by raise of hand if you would like to speak, or you can just type your questions in the chat room. And I believe Mr. Foudeh also has 1 or 2 questions for parents.
Yeah, I do. If you want, I can start with one. Normally, when I do these kind of sessions, we start with some triggering the discussion questions. It's like, let's take a scenario and your son or your daughter comes walk to you in the room. Let's say you're 13 years old or 14 years old or 16 years old and say, Daddy or Mommy, I've been thinking about it and I think it's time I should tell you the truth. I no longer believe in God and I don't think God exists. At that particular moment, as a parent, what will you do or what will you say?
So that question is for the parents. Please go ahead. You can unmute your mic if you'd like to answer or indicate by raise of hand.
I might not have an immediate answer, but I would want to question the child some more and get to know why, how the child came about that conclusion, what led to that. And possibly as the child is speaking, I can get more insight and know exactly which angle to go.
That's a beautiful one. Any more contribution? Okay, when I did this similar presentation in my school, and I asked the same question. And I remember one of the parents' answer was very, very unique. They said that will be a brilliant moment. That is the term the parent used. They said that will be a brilliant moment because at that instance, I'm going to sit down with my child and discuss and have a more fruitful discussion. So I agree with the last speaker now. It will be an opportunity to have more questions. If you get angry or outrageous, because that is the big thing, of course it's a big thing, then you don't help the matter. Because once the doubt is already in your child's mind and you lock him off completely, he has to continue to where the doubt started and nourish it far away from your involvement, and we'll be able to help the child. Somebody else has more to add on this, I will be willing to listen.
We are quite a number here. The fact that we are not talking is not because we are not here, it's just because this is a very tricky question where we don't have the ready answers.
Okay. And that's the point of this discussion, so that we can be prepared if these questions will come up. Should I move into another question?
Please, can I say?
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, always, even myself, sometimes I have a doubt, but I always tell my daughter, if you see how technology is advanced, till now human cannot create even a tree leaves or a trunk of the tree. So this is the way we think that really love is really exists.
So I didn't get the last part of the question. Please, can you repeat?
Yeah. Even sometimes myself, I have a doubt if God exists or not exists. But when I look at the nature, I see that till now, how technology is advanced, we couldn't create leaf of a tree or an ant or a flowers. So this is why you will have no doubt that there's no God. This is what I would tell my daughter.
That's fine. That's fine.
Mr. Foudeh, there's a raise of hand. A parent is raising her hand here. Please go ahead. Should I unmute you? I can see your hand up, Mrs. Ugona.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to, first of all, commend this. It's been a good experience. I really have actually had issues with this topic for a while now. It has plagued me because my parents were a little bit more protective. We really weren't exposed to so many things like this. But like Mr. Foudeh rightly said, our children now have to be that group that gets affected mostly by these things, because as much as we're mature now, we actually understand some things. Some of us can actually question, and we can do our research. And of course, still faith, believe in what we don't see, believe in something that is beyond human comprehension. But then how do we protect our children? Like you already said, you can't stop them from going on. You can't stop them from being influenced by things in the world as it is now. How do you now go ahead to encourage them to investigate, encourage them to question, and give an open mind to whatever decisions they come up with? Because the society will definitely always play an important part in the way our children are. So it's reason for concern, and I'm quite happy that this is taking place because it opens our eyes to the fact that even if we don't talk about it, it will still happen eventually. And I just don't really know exactly what to do, because I have children and they're still and they will grow in a society that is not so tolerant of our religious beliefs as they are now. And the tendency for them to be better than we are technologically, but at the same time, not being grounded religiously or just being better people, because for me, that's what religion should be. It should make an individual a better person. It should actually make you more responsive to people around you who don't have that. Whatever it is that you've been given, okay, that gift, special skill that you have that could make the world a better place. But then it's still idealistic because, like I said, there's really nothing you can do to stop the trend. It breaks my heart to know that we seem like our hands are tied. And conversations like this are good because it gives you a platform to talk about these things in a better way, where you can actually share ideas and gain better insight on how to handle raising your children in a world that is evolving every single day, for the worst times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question here in the chat room, Mr. Foudeh. It says, how would our children survive with all these analysis?
It's very hard. It's very, very hard. And you are not likely to win. We as parents, it's far bigger than what I described. And the struggle I have with today's presentation, I've repeated it over 6 times, and I worked very hard on it to try to make it smaller so they can fit within the time frame. There's so much to talk about. What I was trying to lay foundation for is to try to have that open dialogue at an early age, to emphasize on, of course, there's a creator. And if you are in doubt as a child of what is the best way, let me think about it this way, for example. If I have diabetes and it's a serious, I could be under the threat of maybe amputing my leg, for example, so I can survive. So that's a very hard decision. So as a parents, we wished our children to follow our trend. If I'm a Muslim, I would love them to be a Muslim. If I'm a Christian, I love them to be a Christian. But if I have to choose between for them moving to something else, but they still believe in God, I think it's better for them to get to a conclusion where there is no God. Because in Islam, God says he will forgive all sins except one sin, which is for us to disbelieve in his existence. That one will never be forgiven. But every other thing, with of course the certain conditions and environments, can be forgiven. So it's a hard one. It's difficult. It depends also on the individual, on the child, in your relationship with the child. But the truth is, we no longer have avenues to give time for our children. The time we give them is mainly entertaining based. It's like, oh, we took our children out, we took them to the mall, we took them to the movies, we took them to the park, we took them to the beach, we bought them stuff. That is the only involvement we have with our kids. Now, the poor kids, they are no longer being taught religion in school, of course, unless they go to a religious school. And that is having its own also issues. So we don't discuss it with them at home. The friends they have, they are likely to discuss celebrities, football games, and this. So if you think about it, at very few instances, they get exposed to things related to religion. And the things they see all the time on TV is negative image. I mean, as a Muslim, you will be always shy and try to defend your religion because the so-called terrorists have taken the religion and they portray you in a very bad image. As for example, Christianity, maybe we can be ashamed of the stories of the priest that molested a child and things of this nature. But we don't see things that religion is good, it's good for the heart, it's good for us. It encourages us to cooperate together, feel for each other, support each other. We don't see those. So it's a hard task. It's a hard task. I'm saying it, it's like, I don't want to say we'll be defeated, but we have to start somewhere and we have to help somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh. Do we have more questions from our parents or comments? Okay, Mr. Foudeh, do you have one more question for them before we round up?
Yes, I have a comment. I have a comment.
Okay, Mr. Sobande, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Foudeh, for that detailed information.
Thank you. What happened to his voice? Okay, he's muted again.
Hello?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sobande, that's my husband.
Yeah, it's your wife that muted you.
Somebody's playing music somewhere. Someone is playing music. Adebola William, the volume is on playing music, so it's a bit noisy on my end. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Foudeh, for that very incisive information. It's really needed at this time. I recall a while back, my daughter came home and mentioned to me that one of her classmates in school told her there is no God. And at the time, she was, I think she was just about 5 years old or thereabout. And mind you, my daughter attends a Christian missionary school, which was very interesting to hear her come home and tell me one of her classmates said to her that there's no God. So this is my contribution. A few friends that I've had whose parents were very religious and who were religious leaders turned away from their parents' faith simply because of their parents' lifestyle. They saw the hypocrisy of their parents while they stand on the pulpit to share the word or share their faith with others, and they saw a different lifestyle at home. They saw a different image. For a long time, they struggled with having to deal with duality of personalities. And I recall one of my friends told me that he thinks his parents are bipolar because he sees a different father and different mother at home, and he sees them different outside. They're nice to people outside, but yet they're very caustic in the way they speak about people, especially for parents who discuss their church members or their pastors or their imams or their colleagues, the way they talk about them in the presence of their kids, and the kids get to church and see the same parents relate with the people they talked about negatively at home. It creates conflicts in people's minds. It creates conflicts in the child's minds. What I'm saying really is, before the kids get exposed to this information that derail them from the knowledge of faith, the lifestyle of the parents themselves will have to model, because the parents are the first point of influence in a child's life. Once the parents fail in that, that's why we're excited that parents are being enlightened now. When the parent is not studious, when parents is not knowledgeable in terms of the word of God, in terms of the personality of God and the person of God, they don't have the substance to impact into the child. And as such, the child is not equipped because it's like you rightly pointed out, it's just not playing with the kids. It's just being able to impact life into that child. I know of a relative once who, being from a very good foundation,
Okay, I think both the Sobandes have been muted suddenly.
Okay, I'm back here.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so let me just round up my contribution. I think the first point of call is what you're doing with us tonight, this evening, Mr. Foudeh, that parents need to be equipped with knowledge for themselves so that they can give, because you can't give what you don't have to your children. Exactly. It's not just enough to help them make the choice, but it's just for parents themselves to be knowledgeable, to be equipped with information, and not to abdicate responsibility to the Sunday school teacher or to the school teacher in school, or to just assume that the kids will just follow them to church and grow in faith. I'll stop at that. But I think you have to come again and again for us to continue to have this conversation until parents are equipped. I don't know what the organizers are thinking, but we shouldn't stop here for today. Thank you, Mr. Foudeh.
Thanks, that's a wonderful contribution. And I totally agree. I have somebody in my family that became an atheist. He's a young chap, he was 23 years at the time. And I went to have a chat with him. And the main reason why he became an atheist, when he was a young boy, there was next to them somebody where they can describe like an imam, who used to shout at them for them to be playing on the street. Just for that image of that person shouting on them on the street, he just grew up to hate Islam, because to him, that guy represented the religion. Now, in my presentation, I said we should teach the children not to judge religion with people, but with the scripture. Because, and I also mentioned the example of, should I judge Christianity with Hitler or Islam with bin Laden? I should take the scripture and look for the scripture, if I'm allowed to say, look for the scripture that I feel comfortable with. Because the mistake we also do, we imagine an imam or a priest is like a holy person that is never going to do a mistake. And that one is not true, because they're human beings, they tend to make mistakes. But when they make mistakes because of their position, it makes people with little knowledge or weak hearts to disbelieve in the entire religion that these people represented. Thank you. Ediri, you are muted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh. So we have some questions in the chat room, so we'll just take them quickly because it's 4 p.m. already. And please, parents, just give us like 10 more minutes and we're running up now. Our parents are still here, Mr. Foudeh. All our participants are here listening to us. This is fantastic. I can see in the chat room, parents want you to come back, Mr. Foudeh. We'll have a discussion after this session.
No problem. I'm willing to do so. No problem.
Thank you so much, sir. Some schools have eradicated religious studies from their curriculum. Is this a deliberate action? A parent is asking.
Okay, like Avicenna, it is hard to me to say. We don't teach religion because we are an international community school. We have over 30 nationalities in Avicenna. We tried it sometimes earlier, but it didn't work because we didn't know what to teach and who is expected to receive. We have people who are Muslims, we have Christians, we have people who have Chinese religion, we have non-believers, we have atheists, we have everybody. So it becomes impossible in this kind of setup to give teachings. But what we do in a school is to give moral teachings just to emphasize there is a deity, there is God. We don't try to call him Jesus or Allah or things of this nature so that everybody will understand this is it. So the schools in the present setup, international kind of curriculum, are they not the right place to instill this religious specific information to the kids? That's why it's important to raise this kind of information. The parents have a very, very important role. It's not about just sitting down and having that discussion. My sister-in-law, I think she was online, I don't know if she's still there. She told me once she She was somewhere in a mall where they had a ski yard or ski court. And she noticed a certain family that the children, they had the religious books with them. And that if they read a certain paragraph or a page, and if they understand it, they allow them to go and play, and they come back. That is at that age. As you said, it's like trying to open that dialogue, trying to engage them in these discussions, hopefully will work.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh.
Thank you.
There's another question here. Quickly, a quick one. I know that God exists because of the miracle of my children. This parent is saying this, but how else can I relate this to the children, to my children, that of God's existence?
Yeah, it's just, I know sometimes if you use logic or common sense, it makes other people upset. It's just like the example of the car, and that can be a very good one. The one I put there, you can print it out or take a screenshot. And all the components of the car, is it easier for the child to believe that each component made itself by itself and formed the car, or each was designed by an engineer and produced, then assembled together to give us that one? That's a simple, typical example they can relate to. So if we take it at the bigger picture, how is it difficult for somebody to see that all these things we have, me that I'm talking to you now, where did I come from? Okay, my parents born me. Where did they come from? And it's endless. So if we say nature created itself, fine. If we say everything created itself, that means we believe of a creation from nothing. So equally, we can also believe that God Almighty created himself. And that's where we find ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Foudeh. We have one more. So we have a raise of hand here. Dr. Abu, please go ahead. If you'd like to speak, you can unmute yourself and speak. Hello, Dr. Yusuf Abu. Please go ahead. I can see your hand up. Would you like to speak? Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe that was an error. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh. I've gone through the chat room. No more questions. Let's see. Okay, these are comments. We have comments here. Yes, Dr. Abu, would you like to speak? Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My dearest friend Darwish, you did very nicely. You spoke very nicely. It was a fruitful presentation. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And it was all wonderful, very nice, and really thank you, and for all your colleagues, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was one of the things I was skeptical about.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Bye.
Okay, Sobande, if we are running out of time, should I still ask my questions or?
Okay, maybe one more question, the last question.
Okay, maybe I should just share the slide and leave it for you to think. Maybe if we have another time we meet, or just to trigger a discussion. Let me share my screen and let me take this one. This is Megan Fox. She says, we live in a world where losing your phone is more dramatic than losing your virginity. And I added this, which says, keep your rosaries off my ovaries. Now, this goes completely against what is in the Bible and what is traditionally known in the religious world. And this is where I wanted to share also this at verses 13 to 21, where I quickly summarize it, where a man marries a woman and she discovers that she's not a virgin. And there's a certain procedure how to prove and disproves. In the Arab world, when I got married, that was about 30-something years ago, more than that. And it was practice. Luckily, my family didn't have that kind of practice, that where you take a white piece of cloth into your wedding room or bedroom, and you have to show a proof of virginity. I'm sure most of the Arabs who practice this don't know that the origin of such a culture is in the Old Testament, where it was practiced in the Kingdom of Israel at the time. And my point was that if the Bible says if the woman is not a virgin, she will be stoned to death. And funny enough, also, when we had the Sharia law in Nigeria, and there was a lot of debate about it, and if you look deeply in the Islam Sharia law, you will hardly find a specific thing that says the woman should be stoned, but rather it is in the Old Testament. My point is, if we are raising women now who are feminists, who are empowered, who are believing lives have changed and times have changed, and you tell her that if you are not a virgin when you get married, you should be stoned to death, is there not enough reason for such a woman to leave this faith? This is what I wanted to discuss. If we have more time, we can discuss it. If not, you can just take it and think about it for next time.
Foudeh, please, you can go ahead with your questions. Our parents want to go ahead.
The scenario is, how do you tell your teenage girl who come across this in the scripture that says if she was not a virgin, she would be stoned to death, when it looks a very normal exercise, very normal routine, where this lady says it is more dramatic to lose your phone than actually losing your virginity? How do you tell such a person to be religious in this environment, in these times? This is what I want to open it for discussion. I can't hear you, I'm muted.
Sorry about that. Mrs. Ogona, please go ahead. We have a reaction. Someone is raising a hand. Please go ahead, Mrs. Ogona.
Thank you very much. First of all, realistic to expect you tell a young lady of today that if she's not a virgin and she gets stoned to death, or this is what it was practiced back in the day. So what I would say is this, because I still have toddlers, like I said, I don't have a grown daughter, but I basically raised my younger sister, and my mom was doing her master's and PhD, so I was basically given the responsibility of raising her. And my raising her opened my eyes to the fact that our parents have gone through a lot when it comes to preserving culture. And religion and culture, of course, it's a very, very thin line. These things go hand in hand. So if you actually see religion for what it is, meant to put people on the straight path, meant to encourage the young ones, encourage people to do the right thing, okay? For me, it will be a case of religion is a good thing because it puts you on the straight and narrow path. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you follow everything in total. In other words, as it's said in the Bible, you have to definitely put into consideration the society as it is now. So any religious belief that is not as realistic and as achievable as it is in today's era, in today's world, it shouldn't even be talked about in the first instance, because then you're basically losing your children. You're telling them, oh, you need to do this. This is how you should live your life. And the truth is, unfortunately for us, we have people who take advantage of young ones, take their innocence. What then do you say about these people? It's a very, very wide topic. You have so many things that come into play because the world has evolved so much so that you can't predict and you can't push and you can't do anything that would jeopardize your children's mental state of mind, because they'll get influenced by someone out there. Something out there will definitely get their attention. And of course, it will definitely play into what they want to do, which of course is explore. So there has to be a merge. There has to be some form of compromise. But then the level of compromise now is the question. Would you allow your child go ahead and keep experimenting sexually, or would you just let them have that room where they get to see for themselves, they get to understand what the implications could be of having certain relations that are not ideal? You can't tell a young lady, in quote or unquote, a feminist, that she can't, if she gets married and her husband goes through the whole process and doesn't see blood. Funny enough, biologically, so sorry to cut in, but biologically, you see that The human body doesn't even do that anymore. I can tell you a lot of women who will tell you, oh, when I slept with my husband for the first time, because that was my first time, nothing came out. There was no blood. So the tendency that you see blood is even very slim biologically, based on the age of women get married these days.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, are you done, Mrs. Gona? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any other comments from any parent? Do we have any other comments? Okay, Mr. Foudeh, I think you can go ahead. Thank you so much, Mr. Gona.
Okay, just let's round up and hopefully we'll meet again with the extension of this topic or any other topic. I liked what the last speaker said. I'll give an example from the Muslim tradition. In Islam, the Sharia law says, if you steal, then your punishment will be to cut your hand. And there was a time in the early days of Islam where they had famine and they were, let's say the economic situation was very hard. So the Khalifa, as then his name is Umar ibn al-Khattab, stopped working with the Sharia law because the situation does not allow it. The Sharia law could have worked if as a state or as a community, we have provided for everybody. Everybody is satisfied, everybody is having food, everybody is having medicine, everybody is having a shelter. Then somebody greedy goes more than that to do a stealing, then that severe punishment of cutting the person's hand as a deterrent should have worked very well. Now, I loved your presentation. To be honest, I've never thought about it before, the last speaker. That is, we live in a time where I compare it to that where openness, sexual relationship, all the supposedly the sins are the norms, all the supposedly the things we're not supposed to do is what we do. So if we now say such a very big deterrent is no longer being used, that sounds fair and that sounds nice. Now, something to round up with, as I said, there will be always in every scripture, in every religion, there's one or two things that make us doubtful. What I want us to concentrate on is to instill it in our kids to continuously look for our Creator and find the best way to go about it. I don't want us to get to a level where we say there is no Creator. There is a Creator, but if you have one or two issues about how we came about us, don't forget that the books we're talking about are translations. I mean, in Arabic, Quran was revealed in Arabic. And I'm lucky that I came from an Arabic side and Arabic language is very good. When I was just trying to prepare for this lecture and I'm trying to find translations, I found like 8, 9 translations of different people. It's an attempt to give you the exact message, but it's never accurate the way it's meant in the original language. So along the way, some things might have happened this way. We need to start kind of accepting there are, I don't want to call them mistakes or misinterpretations in various places, in various religions. We shouldn't concentrate on those. We should concentrate on the bigger picture. There is a Creator, definitely is. How do we go about it? And thank you. I think we took more time. I'm sorry for that. I tried to make it smaller, but it didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Foudeh. It was worth the time. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our parents. We still have a lot of our parents logged in. They are still here. Thank you so much. The recording will be made available to everyone. If you register for this session, then we have your email address. But if you did not register, please drop your email address in the chat room so we can include it to our mailing list and send the recording to you. Thank you, everyone. We will have another session again. This webinar holds every last Saturday of every month. We deal with all sorts of critical topics that are related to parenting and to our children. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, parents. Thank you, Mr. Foudeh. Have a very wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Foudeh. Thank you to the Supermoms team. God bless you. Thank you.